Hey folks, how do you like that intro? This is Marsilio with the Astro Markets Update. Last week I actually did record a video, or thought I did, and then realized it had crashed or stopped working about 5 minutes in, and it's like, I think I'm just gonna watch the World Cup. But this week, as usual, a lot to say. I think there's going to be a good, some good trades, pretty high confidence moves in the week ahead. So here we go. Last week in the 10 for review, I didn't put out a forecast, so not much to review. The week before that wasn't bad, but I'm not going to go to that in detail. First, we'll take a look at some technical developments of last week, and then move on to Astro, big picture, and then for the coming week. So this is a chart, simplifies technical indicators chart, pivots only, MAs only on the Dow. And you could see for 3 days it was above the yearly pivot on the daily chart. But I was up with RSI kind of elevated, and when in doubt, zoom out. Same version weekly chart, you could see flirting with the level, but not really. Bullish is like when it has the look of support, and this is still kind of near enough. I mean, technically it was above for 3 trading days, but by Friday, so barely above, you could barely see it on the weekly chart. And sure enough, other charts that had not confirmed the bullish mover were still stuck under resistance, also got whacked. Here's S&P, so that just stopped cold at the half-year pivot. This MA in red that I marked with this kind of extra red line, that's the weekly 50 MA, still falling. So, you know, S&P is not really close to bull territory yet, in the sense of yearly pivot, 50 MA slope. So I'm not sure where the next yearly pivot is coming in, but for now, weekly 50 MA slope negative, weekly 50 MA status negative. This is NASDAQ, so even worse, you know, not even close to its half-year pivot or 50 MA, and instead stopped just on 20 MA and back down to this rising 200 MA, so much weaker in comparison. This is Russell, also looking bad, stopped at this half-year pivot combo and falling 50 MA. So there was, you know, a flirtation with bull territory, but technicals, you know, and only the Dow was really leading. And like I said, I don't know if this line was in last video that did not make it out, or one of the previous videos. Often when only one index is really doing something, that indicates there's a problem in the market, and sure enough, last week got hit. The other thing that happened was, astrologically, Saturn changed terms, but I'll get to that more in that section. So here's a detailed view of the SP, or I'm on the SPY now, the ETF version. And you could see that from last week, there was a lot of technical damage. Friday closing right on the level, but Monday opening with a gap down under that 200 MA. And then kind of flirted with the December pivot, but as of Friday, December pivot also acting as resistance. So a big change from, you know, the prior week in terms of, and then last week, you know, the daily 200 MA fail. It wasn't as clean as the one in August, which came in and tagged the level exact, and then, you know, and then sold off. But sometimes these things do happen. Sometimes support breaks for a little bit and comes back. Sometimes resistance clears and overshoots for a little bit and then fails. They're a little more pesky compared to when it's perfectly clean. Like here's one day above a pivot, the next day kind of on the level, and then bam. But it does happen, and you know, last week was pretty clearly negative from the open, and it just carried through. So just quick review of some other daily charts. Here's Q's still holding its December pivot, so see if that holds in the coming week. This is SOX, and I'm going to go back to the Q's and point out QQQ, despite it holding the December pivot, is below quarterly pivot, 100 MA, and far below the 200 MA. Semiconductors, on the other hand, are above the quarterly pivot, above December pivot, and flirting with the 200 MA. And this is a glaring discrepancy in favor of the semiconductors. And here's one of the semiconductor leaders, NVIDIA, you know, tagging its 200 moving average. And this is just not so common in the big tech companies. If you're curious, you can go down the list of, the top 100 NASDAQ, et cetera, and see how many are actually, just under its 200 MA within striking distance of recovering. It's just not so many, And so, the leaders are always worth watching and often the best money-making opportunities. And there's a few longer term events that either now or the next, within the next couple months, I think there could be a major change in markets, and it's possible that tech resumes leadership. And if that happens, the current leader could be one of the best money-making opportunities. So I'm really keeping an eye on NVIDIA, and I'll say more about the Astro later. The other indicators that I like to watch are not fully confirming this bear move. VIX is still below its yearly pivot, so that's a bull point for stocks, and also high yield bonds, which have been a very good tell, don't really look that bad. So why are stocks selling off? We can't rule out some comeback. And then moving on to cryptos, I really pounded the table on this short, made some off of it, not as much as could have. But since then, I just thought avoid. And I had my Astro reasons for saying that, and technical reasons for saying that, and also just real world. This FTX collapse, I think, is going to take some time to digest. And so far, that's been totally the right move. I think Bitcoin is just kind of dead. It's still capped by 18,000. There's some support, 15, 16. But I'm just finding more interested. I mean, look at December especially. It's just completely sideways chop. So I'm glad I'm not really actively trading this now. If I see something good, I'll try and mention it. But I think avoid has been the right take. Same with Ethereum, chop. And Doge is the most interesting one, but still stopped cold, almost exact on that December pivot, orange, the smaller orange dots. But huge discrepancy between the technicals on Bitcoin, Ethereum versus Doge, because Doge is above its quarterly pivot and 200 MA. If we go back to Ethereum, its 200 MA is up above 1400 and quarterly pivot even higher still. So Doge right now, I mean, there may be other smaller ones I'm not looking at, but Doge clear leader. Okay. Quick note on valuation, around the red line is 15x. That was bought near the low. I've said a few times that given the macro conditions, I'd be surprised to see a big push above 18. And there's been two rallies that have come close to 18 that haven't reached it. And the last one was really kind of near 17.5, which I inserted on the gray dots. So that's the technical. So where do we stand? What's the summary of the technical review? Last week, all the indexes which were flirting with bullish developments returned to bearish territory, and I'm thinking there should be more to this move. And anything above the SPX December pivot is bearish, and then I'll look in terms of weekly pivot, etc. as the Globex opens and on Monday. But I have a few reasons for thinking the drop is going to continue, at least for the near term. But I'm also, at the same time, really watching those semiconductors and thinking, if not soon, in weeks or a couple months ahead, there could be a significant opportunity, kind of a longer term opportunity in this space. And semiconductors really just clearly leading. And the other thing that I wanted to point out that was all over TikTok is this GPT chat seems to be total game changer in terms of next generation of where tech is going. And if whatever companies are benefiting from AI that are not necessarily, I don't know exactly why NVIDIA is so relatively strong compared to the others, but it is, and I'm just wondering with all with certain Astro events ahead, if this is going to turn out very positive for semiconductors. Okay, so a few Astro charts. technically, you know, we've seen what happened in crypto space. They're just kind of going sideways. Astrologically, what is going on is Mars slowing in orange and retrograde. It's just meant no energy in cryptos. So that's going to continue for a while into January. That was a big Astro component of why I was saying avoid after the plunge, and that's been right. Moving on, this is moon quarter on Bitcoin. We're in the middle of the third quarter and even the fourth quarter, which used to be a good edge, obviously, in a bull market. It's just so we've got third quarter ahead this week. Not going to help. This is moon sign, and this is going all the way back to 2021 on Bitcoin. Cancer is about to wrap up as I'm talking. We'll have Leo, Virgo, and Libra. So Virgo's been the weakest moon sign for Bitcoin for quite some time. This is going back to 2021, and even before that it was in play. This is 2020 only, which is even worse. So we've got a third quarter moon in Virgo ahead. So, you know, I'm not going to be bullish cryptos, and pattern on ES, not as drastically bad as cryptos, but somewhat similar. This is S&P data. So what happened last week to change markets so kind of drastically and suddenly? Saturn changed term from Jupiter into Mars, and in bear market environments these do the most damage by far. So even though S&P had actually recovered its daily 200 moving average, from my perspective, Saturn said nope, not going to happen. And the first day of Saturn in turn Mars, the trading day, was Monday, and the bull market technical developments that happened the prior week were suddenly gone. So we're back to bear market data, where Saturn in this term of Mars is very destructive. Here's a look on the S&P. You can't quite tell. You have to kind of see the gap there that Monday came in. It was immediately like, oops, not happening. And down from there. So this is S&P by Saturn terms and inter Mars. None of these data edges are 100%. We do see there was a summer rally with Saturn in the middle of the term Mars. That was when it was retrograde. But direct was largely negative, and sometimes they can be quite nasty. Look at that COVID crash, all Saturn in term of Mars. And when that was over, the whole move was over. A few other charts of interest. This is sun and sun sign data, just basic sun sign data. S&P 1980 to current, bear markets only. See, Sag is better than most, except for Aries, but still not, you know, flat. So now we're in a situation can go either way. And in fact, the data that was looking more positive after last week is now negative. This is bear markets only year by year. It does have fewer negatives, and the average is closer to even, but you know, that's not necessarily a positive edge. It's just not as bad as the others. Another chart that I wanted to point out, Mercury will be slowing, not quite yet, but around Christmas, a little bit before Christmas. And Mercury slowing in a bear market is significantly negative, bearish edge. So we've got that ahead. And I also think this is kind of a bad looking station. That applies for both stocks and cryptos. So there's definitely room to go lower, closer to the end of the year. But so now with all that said, let's look at the current week. So this is Monday. How to condense this all down. Venus had moved in, Mercury had moved into Capricorn last week and stirred up the bond market move, which had been rallying. Venus went into Capricorn over the weekend. So the trading days with Venus and Capricorn begin on Monday. And so, you know, what is this going to do? I think with Saturn kind of nasty position so far, this looks negative. Monday, Moon in Leo, the data is not as good as it sounds, especially in bear markets, although term of Venus may help. It'll shift to term of Saturn midday. at 11 degrees, and that probably will be a more negative change. Even if it holds up, I think probably there'll be some kind of sell-off Monday. So Monday kind of mixed, not the worst, but expecting lower. Actually, there's an interesting Sun sextile to Saturn here. Some recent Saturn aspects did much better than I thought they would, but Saturn's in different condition now, and the results may not be the same. Next Tuesday looks a little weaker, although, you know, I'm not doing the detailed data tracking to really get every single day-to-day move. These are really just like guesstimates. And if Monday plunges, then there's room for a turnaround Tuesday. So it kind of depends on the severity of Monday. What I think is high confidence down is this Sun square Neptune. It will be in play just partially on Tuesday, but really on Wednesday. And that's the same day we have this moon in Virgo, which is weak data for Bitcoin and for Bitcoin cryptos and ES futures. So this is I'm interpreting this as a pretty negative aspect due to Sun condition and the concerns about inflation. So I'll be really surprised if it doesn't drop into Wednesday, and then moon will be in Virgo, which has been weaker. After that, who knows? It could be some recovery, although Friday also not looking that good. It's just, I think markets have room to go lower in the coming week. So that's the call. To those who have supported my work as I've been putting it out over the last several months, I really appreciate, especially the people that are so consistent with all the Twitter likes and engagement. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying to think of how I will continue to develop this project and share some of these approaches in a way that is sustainable for me and also effective for the audience. So, you know, if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to message me directly. I do think this combination of the technical system that I use and the Astro, the way I do it, is pretty much the bomb. But, you know, there are other approaches. I'm certainly not saying I have a, you know, the only correct is what works and works for you. So in any case, thank you very much.